You see, elections, they aren't just a personality contest. They're much, much more than that. An election is the most powerful form of data engineering for governance that we have. When people cast their vote, they're sending a signal. They're giving us raw data about their lives, their needs, their frustrations, and of course, their hopes. Our work is to listen, to truly listen to that data, translate it, and from that, build a blueprint for real, effective leadership. So, let's begin. Our journey starts here in Arkakong. It's a constituency in Nagaland in the Mokochung district. And to understand any political story, any shift in the wind, you can't just stare at spreadsheets and numbers. No, first you have to understand the soil from which everything grows. The people, their culture, how they live, their identity. So, that's where we'll start. Let's really dig in and understand the fundamentals of this very unique place. Who are the people of Arkakong? What defines them? Well, what you find here is a community that is incredibly unified. It is home to the Io people, a community with a very deep, very powerful sense of shared identity. And this isn't just a footnote in a census report. It's the absolute bedrock of social and political life here. You have the Changli and the Mongsan subgroups, and they form the very core of this community. Now, to give you a sense of scale, in the 2023 election, there were just under 20,000 electors. Think about that. In a constituency of this size, every single family, every voice has the potential to be heard. Every vote carries real weight. And as we're about to see, the people of Arkakong make absolutely sure their voices are heard. Just look at this. This number tells a powerful story, a voter turnout of over 90%. This isn't just participation, it's a statement. This is not a place of voter apathy. This is a highly motivated, highly engaged community that believes their vote matters. They show up, they speak, loudly. And here's what's really fascinating. It's what this tells us about the kind of voter we're talking about. The literacy rate here is almost 100%. So this isn't an electorate you can sway with empty slogans or just pure rhetoric. No, these are educated, informed people. They're open to messages based on real issues, on logic, on credible plans. This is so important because it reminds us that our entire constitutional framework rests on the dignity of the individual and the value of informed public speech, and a deep responsibility on the part of those who seek to lead to respond to that speech with substance. Okay, so with that background, a tight-knit, highly engaged, and literate electorate, what did they actually say in the last election? When you look at the data, it's not confusing. It sends 3 crystal-clear signals. 3 truths that came directly from the ballot box. The first signal, well, it's nothing short of a political earthquake. The Naga People's Front, the NPF, was once the dominant force. Look at that, nearly 55% of the vote in 2013. A decade later, 0. Not a low number, 0. They didn't even have a candidate on the ballot. This is a total systemic collapse of a political institution. So what happened in that vacuum? Did the vote splinter into a dozen different pieces? No, quite the opposite. And that's the second signal, clarity. The voters didn't get confused, they made a decisive choice. A single winner with over 53% of the vote. The verdict was clear, it was consolidated. The people spoke with one voice. And this right here, this is the third and most crucial signal. It tells us what that one voice was asking for. And their priorities are not abstract or ideological. They are tangible. They're rooted in daily life. Look at the intensity ratings. Roads and infrastructure, high. Employment and jobs, high. These are the issues that dominate people's lives. The people are asking for development they can actually see, touch, and feel. So, this brings us to the most important question. Why? How does a political force that absolutely commanded a majority just vanish in 10 years? This wasn't a freak accident. It was a result of systemic failures. So let's perform an autopsy on this political shift. Let's understand the anatomy of it. The whole story really unfolds on this timeline. After that peak in 2013, the breaking point, the critical moment, comes in 2017. There's a schism, a deep split inside the NPF, which leads to the creation of the NDPP. This shattered the party's base. It broke their monopoly on the narrative, and it created a huge political vacuum. And you can see the immediate result, a massive 16-point drop in their vote share just 1 year later. Now, into that vacuum stepped a completely new narrative. While the NPF was still talking about its legacy, its history, its past glories, the rival NDA coalition started speaking a totally different language. Their message was simple, direct, and forward-looking. Change is coming. They weren't talking about yesterday. They were talking about development, about progress, about the future. And that message found fertile ground. And then came a shock to the system, an external event. In 2020, an economic blockade of the main highway to Assam completely disrupted daily life and commerce. This moment crystallized everything. It took the focus away from old loyalties and historical stories and boiled everything down to one single pragmatic question. Who can solve our problems right now? Who can actually deliver? So, understanding the collapse, that's the diagnosis. Now we move to the prescription. Based on the data, based on every signal coming from the soil, it is absolutely possible to engineer a political comeback, but it has to be precise. It has to be data-driven. Here's the blueprint. Everything begins with the right candidate, and the data doesn't just call for a candidate, it calls for a very specific archetype, the auto development champion. This isn't about a face on a poster. It's about finding someone who embodies the solution, someone who is deeply rooted in auto tradition, but is also modern and forward-looking, someone with a real, credible history of work, who is articulate, comfortable with technology, and most importantly, is a visible, trusted part of community life. For this to work, the candidate's character has to be their primary message. This is absolutely non-negotiable. The entire platform must be built on 3 pillars that directly answer what the voters are asking for. First, demonstrable trust. Second, a relentless, obsessive focus on public welfare. And third, an innovative image that clearly signals a break from the politics of the past. And this is how you execute it, with discipline. A 3-phase, 90-day mission. The first 30 days are purely for listening. You build your team, you go to every village, and you listen more than you talk. You gather intelligence. The second month, you intensify. Daily door-to-door campaigns, organizing traditional community meetings, and releasing specific, credible policy pledges. And the final 30 days are all about peaking at the right moment. A digital blitz, visible development drives, and a flawless plan to get every single supporter to the polls. Now, let's zoom out for a moment. This whole campaign blueprint isn't just about winning one election. It's about building towards a much larger vision of governance. A campaign, when it's done right, is about forging a contract with the people, a contract of trust, and that becomes the very foundation of your ability to govern effectively. And here is a calm but firm warning. An old story cannot win a new election. That educated, engaged, younger generation, they are not bound by the loyalties of their parents or grandparents. They are deeply, personally interested in their future, and any leader who wants to engage with them, especially in the digital world, must do so with respect. This means respecting their privacy and their consent, principles that are now at the core of India's digital personal data protection framework. You see, trust is built not just on promises you keep, but also on the basic respect you show for every individual. All this data coming from a small constituency in Nagaland, it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. In this new environment, in this new reality, what is the future of leadership itself? I think the answer is quite clear. The future belongs to a leader who can walk in 2 worlds at once. A leader who is both a true guardian of the deep-rooted traditions of their people and, at the same time, a fearless architect of their future. Someone who respects the soil, but also knows how to build on it. And that brings us right back to where we started, to our core philosophy. This entire deep dive, this analysis, it all reinforces one central idea. A modern election is about data. It is about understanding the people's needs with clarity and precision, and using that understanding to engineer a mandate for effective, responsive, and real governance. If you want to become a people-centric leader and uplift your constituency, get in touch with blueprintstrategies.ai at mgr@blueprintstrategies.ai or call 080-420-41602. Purpose Beyond Politics.